Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are talking about GA4 news, tricks and tips.
Right, I'd like to start by saying how relieved I am through that intro, because Kieran, I mean, you won't know this if you're watching this, it will seem seamless, but we just had to do that intro quite a few times.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It went a bit wrong.
You're making it up as you go along.
Yeah, he was just making stuff up. That was pretty wacky. But anyway, we're here now. Let's talk about GA4. There are some hands-on tips we're going to try and give you. It's going to be great. There's a bit of news that came out that has set the discussion groups afire with people being utterly confused. And I was utterly confused as well, but I think we've got to the bottom of it now. So we're going to go into that stuff as well. So let's go through this. And I'll give you loads of things that we've learned by using the platform, because I'm using it tons now. We have got the courses coming up on this again as well. targetinternet.com/masterclass. We've got those half-day sessions on this and an advanced session now as well. So take a look at that if you're interested. So let's start with the news. So there was this thing called Google Signals. And the idea was we have this kind of cookieless future where there are less cookies for giving us kind of tracking data. And therefore, Signals was like you going in, logging into your Google account on your phone, logging into your Google account on your desktop or laptop, and then it could connect up who you were, and it could start to paint a better picture of who the audience was. And it was getting data from lots of different places, and Signals was one of those places. The problem with that is that it created thresholding.
What is thresholding?
I was waiting. I said it slowly. Did you notice? I was waiting for you to jump in, play the audience, and go, we have no idea what this is. Okay, so the problem is, because of privacy, if you have this data and you've got very low numbers of visitors for a particular thing, you could use the data to work out an individual's activity, and you're not supposed to be able to do that, because you could then associate that back to an email address and order. So you would be able to have personally identifiable connections to that person. Now, we had many tens of thousands of visits to the website. It still was a problem for us. Loads of our reports being thresholded because you drill down to a particular day for a particular piece of content, and it would go, no, sorry, you can't see this.
It's particularly a problem if you're looking at, that we can see a problem occurred here.
Yeah.
So you drill into that day and the report just says no data. I'm like, wait, what? So then you expand it to like 3 days.
It gives you
you can see there's data, and you can see data points for that day. Right, but you're not able to then break down an individual day by channel, for example. And it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. So it was a big problem. So they are now removing Signals from the reporting profile. What does that mean? It means that they're not getting rid of Signals altogether. Oh. They're still going to use it so they can identify things like interests and gender and all those kind of things. But
they're going to use the data.
Well, they're going to still collect it and use it. And you'll still have access to some parts of it as well.
Oh, okay.
You still will have some of it, but it just won't be in these main reports, which means that you won't get the thresholding anymore. So that should cease to be a problem. So as of February 2024, that ceases to be a problem.
But presumably then there's less data in your reports, because that was being used to fill in some of the gaps, right?
It was being used to fill in the gaps. And there's lots of discussion about, no, it's going to be fine. But if you take away something that was helping you calculate stuff, it's going to change how you calculate it, which means you will not be able to do apples to apples.
No. Yeah, don't tell me that.
Yeah. So February onwards, your data will be calculated differently. So it won't be the same. So you won't be able to go back and go, it's dropped 10%. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't.
Right, Teddy's out of pram. That's just great.
Yeah, it is a problem.
I've been waiting since like July. Oh, we've only got another 12 months before we can do year-on-year comparison. Yeah. And now, Google, you've just thrown a big, nasty, rotten apple in the cart.
So the thing was, anyway, that increasingly I am not looking at year-on-year comparisons because
Google keep messing with stuff all the time.
People keep deleting cookies. People are changing devices. People are
but they've
it's
always
never been accurate. Yeah, but it's never
always.
But that's why I've stopped looking at it, because when we bought GA4 out, I looked into the data and it's not accurate anyway.
It's true.
But it's direction of if our traffic has gone up 50%, we know that we're going in the right direction, kind of thing, right? Yeah. Search Console is increasingly kind of useful as well, because at least you can see how many people you're getting in from Google from that point of view as well. And then putting in your URL tracking becomes even more important to make sure you've got that campaign data as well. So there's a number of things we can do to make sure our data is as accurate as possible. And that URL tracking is going to help with those kind of things. But the problem is, it's how you know it's the same person visiting each time. That's gonna change slightly.
It could just install Fathom Analytics, and to hell with Google.
You could do. I mean, the reality is that then you're going to be scuppered because all your conversion events that you've set up are what's really powering Google Ads.
Hashtag cross-network.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There's always a discrepancy anyway, though. No matter how many analytics platforms you look at, they'll all tell you different things.
Yeah, they will. And I think that's why it's direction of travel. I mean, you need something that tells you how many sales you're getting or how many leads or sales you're getting out of it. And then you can start to look at the trends over a period of time.
But at least with Fathom Analytics, you haven't got them delving in and messing with your data every 3-4 months, have you?
Well, you haven't.
I would say, out there.
What I'd say is that everyone, first of all, is reacting to this really negatively, and everyone is saying, actually, this is a great solution because it means we won't have threshold anymore. But there isn't that clarity on how it changes the data from that point of view. So there you have it. There's an absolutely imprecise answer to a question that nobody knows.
So all joking aside, I'm not really that cross, don't really care all that much, but I'm just want to make a serious point that actually having a backup alternative that's not going to change, I don't think that's a bad option. This is one of the problems with GA4 is it's constantly being developed because it was never really finished when they released it. And I think they're continually hitting problem after problem and then solving it, and in doing so creating other problems. Your measurement is really important because you have to report back on that, and that's the benchmark of your achievements as a marketing team in the digital world. Now, increasingly, that's how it's looked at. But it is because everybody's drunk the Google Kool-Aid and gone, data is king.
It is king, but I would also say that there are some things that you do know how many leads you've got, you do know how many sales you've made. When we get to engagement and vanity metrics, it starts getting tricky.
If you can't in some way consistently attribute that back to all the spend,
of course,
you are up the creek without a paddle because you are exposed and could be criticised. Well, that was a waste of money, wasn't it? That's the problem here is that they make these changes, but they've no real. I don't think they're thinking clearly enough about the real implications of that data changing and the impact that has on the marketers that are reliant on it.
I think they are. I think they just
don't care.
No, I don't think so. I think there's a problem. And I think they kind of realised it was more of a problem that this is going to cause in the long term, and they're trying to do it for the long term.
Okay. All right.
So I think that's where it is.
I forgive them.
Yeah. I mean, you should forgive them. They're giving you something for free. I mean, this is the other thing. I'm so angry about this, but it's just like, it is a free product. But to encourage you to spend more money on advertising.
Yeah. So, or an alternative product that doesn't mess about.
That's it, right? That's it. So I think having multiple sources of the truth is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've got a couple of options, you've got a couple of options. Okay. So there's that. Improvement. Now we're going to talk about good things.
Right.
Overview reports. Within each of the sections within GA4 are these overview reports, and they were like summary slides that had like 4 or 5 different charts and tables, and I would invariably never look at them because it was all things to all people and it wasn't particularly useful. Some of them you could before, but now if you go in a notice, you can drill into them. So I was really confused. And when you go down to the tech reports, and it told you basically what devices people were using, and then something else, and that was it. And it was like, oh, that's not. I used to have loads of detail in here. Now you go to the overview report. Every one of those little overview charts has a drill in, and it gives you a completely in-depth report for devices, screen size, mobile. It does all that stuff in a lot more detail. All the stuff that was there before is there now.
How nice of them to complete that part of their product 6 months later after forcing us all to use it.
There you go.
Thanks, Google.
So it's better. You can drill into things now as well. Still, many reports you can't click to drill into. So just a reminder with this. If you went to your acquisition reports and you clicked on organic search in your universal analytics, you could drill into it and look at it in detail. Although they had removed the keywords. But anyway, we won't get into that now. But the thing to do now is filter and add secondary dimension. Filter and add secondary dimension. So let me explain. You go into a report, you type in, maybe you just want organic search, you type in organic search, and it will isolate that. And then you can add a secondary dimension that you say source medium. So now I'm going to say organic search Google, organic search Baidu, organic search Yahoo. So I've got a bit more detail than I had before. And that little thing of filtering and adding secondary dimensions, once you get into the habit of that, you start getting a bit more useful insight.
In a way, I kind of like that they're teasing out all this functionality. It's kind of like foreplay for data analysis, isn't it? It's like that expectation for Christmas. Like, what could it be next? What are you going to add in there that we used to have? It'd be so exciting.
And it just takes longer to do it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I like it actually. I prefer it. I prefer it to
You're enjoying the foreplay.
No, it's not that. I am thinking that actually I have a lot more opportunity to customize. It's a lot more flexible. And before I was just spoiled rotten with loads of reports. I didn't use any of them. There's like 3 that I used. Whereas with this, what I'm doing is creating custom versions of reports I actually use.
It does force you to really think about the data behind the reports as well, doesn't it? Which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's it. So The one thing that is missing that confused a lot of people at the beginning, and if you haven't got your head around it still confusing, is that you used to have campaign reports. So under acquisition in Universal Analytics, you had campaigns, and that was anything you'd put tracking code onto. That disappeared. And it's like, well, where is it all now?
You can still get to it.
Well, you can, yeah. And there's a few ways, and I just wanted to share those. So the first one that everyone misses is that when you go into any report in GA4, you've got your primary dimension, and then you've got a load of metrics, okay? You can change the primary dimension. And a standard, it's normally channel acquisition, but actually you can just change it to campaign. And if you change it to campaign, it will just list the campaigns that you've gone through. And then you can add a filter and you can isolate a particular one if you wanted to. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is to add a secondary dimension, and you can go through and say, right, I want the campaign in the secondary dimension, and then you'll be able to see all your campaigns. The thing that I've done is go through and do that, and then you can add filters. So you can, over on the top right, you click filters and you say, I want to add the campaigns, but I also only want it when a campaign equals, and then you can put whichever of your campaigns you want to look at in particular. The other way of doing it, if you only want to see something that's got a campaign, and this is where it gets a bit more complicated, because it's going to list loads of where your traffic's coming from, but it will list those that don't have a campaign and those that do. So what you can do is go in and you just put a regular expression in. So if you just put in regular expression for when not blank. So if you Google that regular expression for not blank, we'll put it into the show notes as well. So targetinternet.com/podcast. But you can go in and say, I just want this table to show me anywhere where the campaign isn't blank. And then it will bring all my campaigns into me there for me as well. And it will exclude just my organic search traffic and all those kind of things as well. So there are lots of ways of getting at it now. And that's maybe the problem, is that there's more than one way of getting to things now. There's not just like a standard report with that. So I think that campaign tracking is important. The other thing is, if you haven't got your a spread of different conversions events set up, you're not going to get the most out of Google Ads anymore. There's the big connection now is that you go in to your Google Ads and you set what your conversion events are, and it will just pull them in from GA4. So if that's not set up, your Google Ads is not going to be optimizing effectively. So think about anything you want to drive an outcome from an ad campaign, you need to set it up as a conversion event. And bear in mind, you can set anything up to be a conversion event. So you could go, people watching this particular video, or people particularly filling this particular form, or whatever it might be, you can set those up as well. The bit that people aren't doing with this is using audiences. So one of the things that Google Ads is now good at is using machine learning to find similar audiences, or you give it a bit of a signal. People that like this, they might like this kind of stuff. So you can go in now into GA4 and set up a new audience. That could be people that have visited a particular page, people that ended up purchasing, people that came to our website from an organic Google search, all those sorts of different things. You set that as an audience, and you can set really detailed rules from these different things, like where they came from, how long they stayed, did they convert, did they not convert, et cetera, et cetera. They are automatically now available within Google Ads, which means you can set your campaign to target a particular audience, but you can also set it to go and try and use AI to then expand that afterwards as well. So you start using some of that AI functionality, but it's a starting point.
But you set that up from within GA4?
Yeah, so GA4 is where you set those up and then they suddenly become available. So Google Ads without GA4 is just not as functional as it could be. So that's going to be really important as well. The other thing that was quite interesting, I was doing something the other day. I was going through on a training course and I was showing people the menus that I had within GA4. And basically, someone was like, I haven't got that on my menu. And it's like, okay, I know where it is. I can show you where it is. So if you go down, when you're in your report section of GA4, you go down to the little button at the bottom, and it allows you to change the menus. It's called collections. Okay? But what we discovered is if you set up your GA4 after a certain date, or if you used automatically set up from Universal Analytics, then it didn't give you a subset of two different sets of reports.
Right.
And you've got this set of reports that are business objectives. So it says, do you want to drive leads? Do you want to drive sales? All those kind of things. It's much the same reports in there, but it's kind of structured together differently. So what I would do is go to your main reports, go down to the bottom. You've got these collections, which are groupings. You can publish and unpublish them. And you're going to find there's a number in there that are unpublished. So if you publish those, you'll get then those reports. You can create your own ones and your variations of those kind of things as well. But yeah, definitely worth having a look at that and see if you're missing those kind of things as well. The other thing to go in and look at is, and I haven't put it on the show notes here, but I just wanted to talk to you about it as well, is the debugging view. So you showed me this originally, right? So you have the plugin for Google Chrome, you switch it on, then you go into your settings in GA4, and you can see whatever you're doing. But that isn't being recorded into the analytics in the long term. So you can test stuff out and try stuff out as well. I had a really interesting experience with this. I set up to trigger an event when you went through to a podcast page, because we were doing a Performance Max campaign, so an AI campaign, and I wanted it to optimize for people listening to podcasts. So I didn't want the generic podcast page. I wanted individual episode pages. If you got there, then I was kind of happy. That was my outcome. So I sent an event up, a conversion event, to trigger when you visited those pages. Okay. And I went to the debug view, and it was triggering 4 times out of 5. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And it just, because it was a page view, and it was a certain type of page view, it just wasn't triggering all the time. Wasn't triggering properly at all. And I was like, okay, why is that? And I went online, loads of people the same problem. So what you want to do is go through and check, is it something to do with the loading time of the page? Is it where the code is on the page? All those kind of things. What we discovered is that if you navigated away from that page, within 2 or 3 seconds, it didn't register it. And I was like, well, this is no good whatsoever. It's completely consistent. Turns out that's the debug view. It was actually recording when you set it live. So the debug view isn't accurate, which is really hard for debugging things as well.
Debug view's got a bug.
Yeah, it has. So just be aware of that, because you'll go in and say, well, this isn't triggering. So you've also got a thing of actually setting up in the real world, leaving it 24 hours and then coming back, which is the whole thing the debug view is supposed to overcome to some extent. So let's get your opinions. Kieran, how do you feel? What do you think about GA4? How are you feeling with it now? You've been using it for a while.
It's okay. I love the fact that I can see by user, like first click and session. Like I've talked about.
You like that stuff?
I like that. That's good. I'm customizing everything a lot more. I'm not so reliant on the default views.
Yeah.
So actually, I've learned to rather than go into each report and then do that funny dance where you change this and change that. No, do it once and then save it.
Yeah.
Within the account. There's lots of gotchas with it because it is so customizable. So if you're not careful, you start comparing apples with oranges when you dance between 2 different reports.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
why it's good to sort of save once you get things the way that they go. I've had a lot of fun, like working with different clients to get them the information that they need, because everybody's like a fish out of water. And actually, it happens. I love to bait Google. Google, I'm really sorry, but you're too big. It's too much of a challenge.
I don't think they're going to ever give you a job now.
No, I don't think they ever were going to give me a job, really.
That is also possibly true.
Yeah, but I love that. That's great. I have to say, I find the interface now, I've been using it for over a year now, quite intuitive.
Yeah, me too. It's weird because at the beginning it's impossible.
But I've got to a stage now where I'm happy, where I don't feel like I've turned up to work in my pajamas.
Yeah, right.
Or without my pajamas, even worse. Let's not go there. But it's
we didn't want to, but you made us. So just carry on.
Works,
carry on.
Digging myself a hole.
Yes.
It's nice. It's good, and you can get out of it what you want. There's one thing that really annoys me, and that's the lack of annotation. Because actually it's so useful. And actually there are a few plugins actually that you can now use. It used to annoy me that they were all like paid for,
right?
But that's not the case. So we'll link to an article.
So if you don't know, by the way, annotations basically means you can make a note and say, we released this campaign here. We changed the website on this date. Yeah. So when you see any spikes or changes, you can kind of have a note with it. It explains what it's all about.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of, we'll link to one which gives you lots of different options. There's a few different ways of doing that. But that's really useful. And maybe Google are just too busy dealing with the other stuff. But Google, if you are listening, that would make me very happy.
My opinion on this is that this has been a really good thing for the world of marketing.
What, not having annotations?
Just the change to GA4 full stop.
Okay.
I tell you why. Because it's make people step back and go, what are we recording and why are we tracking that? And
not everyone.
Well, no. Okay, I'll give you a really scary stat.
Excuse me.
We did a bit of sample surveying. We're talking several hundred organizations over a whole series of training courses over a period of time. 70% of people have either not set up GA4 or haven't set it up properly or haven't even looked at it yet. 70%. So only 30% of organizations are actually tracking what they're doing online properly now. So maybe, as I say, it's good for marketing. Maybe it's been good for the 30% of people that have actually looked at this. But I do think that it's maybe a bit of a wake-up call. So, 2024, new resolutions, you're doing new things. I really think getting this done properly. And it doesn't need to be complicated. The immediate belief at the beginning is, you have to know Tag Manager inside out. No, there's plenty you can do about Tag Manager. And that's what I thought first of all, but actually you don't need that to set your conversion events.
And I think for a lot of people, I mean, Universal Analytics have been going for so long. Everyone knew it like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
And then you've got to learn something completely new.
Yeah.
And everything's not where it used to be.
Yeah.
But in reality, when you start learning it and you can start drilling down into everything, you need to get set up.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly that. So if you need any help with that, we've got those masterclasses coming up. So half-day sessions, targetinternet.com/masterclass. And you will see all of those that we've got up and running. I want to hear your experience of this. What are you getting on? What do you do and don't like? And as ever, you can let us know, targetinternet.com/podcast. And we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.